All right, y'all, we are in the midst of the most wonderful time of the year. You know what I'm talking about, the start of the college football season. This is your man L Jamal with a special edition of Never Out of Bounds. Of course, this is the place we can say what you want as long as you got them facts. And you know what time it is. It's time to break down these conferences, these Power 5 conferences. Today, I'll be breaking down the Pac-12, talking about the who's who, what they did, what to expect from them, what they did in terms of recruiting. You know the works. Let's get all into it, of course, with, I guess, the known favorites. Coming out of South, let's be honest here, it's no question that it's going to be Utah. And if there's going to be any team that's going to beat the fuck out of my Ducks this year, it better be the Utes and Kyle Whittingham. Last year, they finished 10-4 overall, 8-1 versus the Pac-12. Of course, they would end up winning the South and eventually the Pac-12 title, blowing us out twice to get there. And of course, they would come up just a little bit short in the Rose Bowl to Ohio State. Again, pretty good season nonetheless. Cameron Rising is back. He threw for over 2,490 yards last season, completing over 63% of his passes, 20-5 touchdown to interception ratio. They're still going to be deep at running back and looking to run you over. They do lose they do lose a starter, TJ Pledger, but they bring back their leading rusher, Tavion Thomas and Micah Bernard. Tavion Thomas was the team's leading rusher last season. He would have over 1,100 yards, 21 touchdowns. He also had 4 straight 100-yard games. They bring back their best wide receiver, tight end, or not their best wide receiver, but it's their best receiver, tight end Brad Queeth. And defensively, they bring back their top tackler. Well, they lose their top tackler, Devin Lloyd, but they bring back 6 starters in general, including Frosch, the Defensive Player of the Year, Van Fillinger on defensive line. He would have 13 starts last season, 5.5 sacks. Junior DeFuna comes back as well. 4.5 sacks from him. Of course, we know about Kyle Whittingham, one of the best to do it for that program, and one of the best to do it on this side of the country. Second longest tenured coach in FBS on the FBS level. Again, we have some big matchups for this team. Starting off with this weekend, tomorrow actually, they're going to be on the road in the swamp to take on Florida. So again, that'll be a big test to see just how far this team can go. We already know about the Oregon game. Mark it on your calendar, November the 19th. The Utes have won 2 of the last 3. So again, the Ducks are going to have to win to convince anybody. I understand. But again, the winner of this game should go on to represent the Pac-12 in the college football playoff. Of course, they got to win the conference title first, but this goes a long way into doing that. They have a matchup against UCLA as well. They've won 8 of the last 11 meetings there. It could go either way. Everybody's looking at this USC game as very important as well. USC could be much improved. We'll talk about them in just a second. The home team is 7-2 in this series. In the last 9, Utah's going to be at home. It might be more. That might, be just all they need. Otherwise, on the schedule, they got Southern Utah on September the 10th. That should be an easy game. September the 17th, they have San Diego State. Arizona State, those guys, Oregon State, those should all be wins. Again, outside of the Oregon game and the Florida game, the USC game, game could go kind of either way as well, just depending on how great Lincoln Riley can get everybody. That's what everybody's banking on as a USC fan. Speaking of which, let's just talk about them real quick. Last year, they would finish 4-8. 3-6 versus the Pac-12, if I'm not mistaken. Again, below the standard. Again, everybody's talking about how great that they are, but they never really come through in terms of all that. But again, they're bringing in some great transfers. Everybody's hype about that. Of course, you're bringing in Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, Pitt transfer. So again, they have some solid things going for them offensively. Of course, we know about Lincoln Riley, the Lincoln Riley factor. They love him. Again, they just like they always do, they overhype USC. Again, if we look at the conference recruiting rankings, they're ranked 10th right now. So again, I'm not convinced. Oregon is beating them in that department, as usual. We beat them on the field, too, in a lot of cases, at least recently. This isn't 2000 anymore. Can we stop overhyping USC? I'm sorry. They're not winning a national championship anytime soon, even if they go to the Big Ten. They can run out there, too. It's just They just ain't got what it takes right now. They're bringing in Alex Grinch, their defensive coordinator. His defenses, the best that they could do in Oklahoma was average 28 points per game last season. The best offense coming out of the Pac-12 South, which is going to be Utah, is going to average about 34, 35. Again, whoop-de-doo, guys. Congratulations, Trojans. Great. You did a great job. Moving on, you have UCLA here. You could possibly put them in the mix. They're bringing back Dorian Thompson-Robinson, one of the best quarterbacks in a while now. Last season, he would throw for over 2,400 yards, completing 62% of his passes, 21-6 touchdown to interception ratio, second team all Pac-12, providing the team with some rushing production as well. 609 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns. Again, they'll be helped out on the running game by Zach Charbonnet. He would have over 1,100 yards last season as well, 13 touchdowns. They do have 3 starters returning on the offensive line, so that's some good things going there. Again, this would only help improve them because they averaged about 215 yards per game last season on the ground, which is pretty decent. They will give up about 25 sacks though, so look for them to improve with the starters that they're bringing back. Defensively, they were slightly below average, giving up about 7. They were 7th in points per game allowed. They lose their top 3 tacklers at linebacker, but they bring in some transfers there. Darius Muasau from Hawaii. They also bring in Aziz Hearn from Wyoming, who started 29 games in his career so far. But they also bring back their second leading tackler, safety Stephen Blaylock, a senior there. So again, they bring back 8 total starters. Not the greatest look right now. I would say Chip Kelly is on the hot seat. Their early schedule is easy. It's winnable despite a game against Utah in October. They should get wins against Bowling Green, Alabama State, South Alabama, those guys. The Washington game, they should be able to pull that off. I don't see them beating Oregon, though, coming off of a bye. Arizona and Cal are both winnable games. So this is a great chance for this team to kind of, in a way, repeat. Of course, they have to meet up with USC again. That game could go either way. Again, even the matchup against Arizona State, they still seem to be talented, although I feel like that program is just kind of waiting for their shoe to drop in terms of their punishment. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But moving on to Arizona, moving a little bit further south, they finished 1-11 last year, 1-8 versus the Pac-12. What can you say? I can say something positive, though. They finished 3rd. They're currently 3rd in the conference in recruiting. They brought in about 5 4-star recruits, if I'm not mistaken. So they're looking to improve. I have nothing against that. Again, you got to do what you got to do to get better. But they're bringing in a great transfer for quarterback Jason. I think his name is Jaden DeLaura, transfer from Washington State. He completed over 63% of his passes last year for over 2,798 yards. Looking really solid there. 23-9 touchdown to interception ratio, miles ahead of what they had from the quarterbacks last season. They had a 12-18 touchdown to interception ratio, so they good in that department. The running game should be much improved. They'll have about 6 backs in rotation. They probably won't use all 6 backs, but they'll be deep. They'll be healthy. They'll be productive. They lose their top wide receiver, Stanley Berryhill, though. Last year, he would have over 740 yards. But they do bring in a 4th-team All-American, Jacob Cowing. They also bring in, they also look to want to improve their offensive line. They dealt with numerous injuries last season. They look to be healed up, though, but that would hamper them a little bit. They were kept to just about 130 rushing yards last season, so they're looking to improve there as well. In terms of defense, they're bringing back some solid starters here, including some transfers here, including Hunter Echols from USC, Jeremy Mercier from Utah, but they lose 3 starters at linebacker, although they're bringing back their safety Gunnar Maldonado. They're actually going to be moving him to linebacker, and they'll be returning Jerry Roberts to the linebacker spot. He had 3.5 tackles for loss last season. Highlight on the defense will be the secondary. They gave up only about 200 yards last season. They're bringing back a lot of their, or at least players with starting experience. That's their best total that they've given up since 2008. So look for that to improve with, again, more, with more reps for those guys. Moving on, we have Colorado here, 4-8 last season as well, 3-6 versus the Pac-12. They started off with a 35-7 blowout of Northern Colorado, but again, it's Northern Colorado. Take that how you will. They would go 2-4 to finish everything off. Not really a good look. They would take back-to-back losses to Oregon and winless Arizona at some point in the season as well. So again, not a good look for Colorado. Last year they were finished 12th, 129th in yards per game. They finished 12th in the Pac-12 in terms of yardage as well. They finished 121st in points per game as well at 18.8. There will be a four-way battle at quarterback between J.T. Shrout, also Brendan Lewis, and Houston transfer Cop Maddox. So again, they still got to figure out who's going to be under center. I think you'll figure it out by the time this weekend comes around. I think they should be playing. They did lose their best running back as well, Jarek Broussard. He goes to Michigan State via the transfer portal, but they do bring back Alex Valinant. Last year he would have over 300 yards. In his freshman year, though, he would have he'll be the first Colorado back to debut with over 100 yards since 1980. So again, he only had a limited, sample size last season, only 326 yards, but there's a potential for Valinant to do more. That's there. They returned 7 total offensive starters, including their best wideout, Brady Russell, at least the one that's coming back. He had over 300 receiving yards last season, over 20 catches. They also add transfer R.J. Sneed from Baylor, who made 12 starts last season and compiled 563 receiving yards on 12.8 yards per carry. Defensively, they allow 26 points per game, so I don't really see that improving. They bring back a couple starters, but again, the D-line also bring back a couple starters as well. But again, with Utah still being good, UCLA boasting a competent team. We all know that USC should be better, although I don't see them winning the conference, but they should at least be better. It's a tough break for Utah. That's all I'm going to say. The linebacker spot, they'll bring back their second best tackler, Quinn Perry. They also will upgrade with West Virginia transfer Josh Chandler Sumedo. He would have 13 starts, also 110 tackles last season and 5.5 tackles for loss. But they also bring back their number one tackler with strong safety Isaiah Lewis. On special teams, they lose their kicker. They lose their kicker and their punt returner Brendan Rice, and they lose their punter Josh Watt. So if we take a look at their schedule, it's easy out the gate. I mean, they faced off against Air Force, but immediately week 1, really, it's going to be difficult. Tonight, I think they're facing off against TCU. This is just their first home game to start the year off since 2009, so that should be interesting. But TCU is a very tough draw in their first game of the year. They do face off, like I said, after that, they face off against Air Force, so that should be a winnable game. Minnesota should have taken a step down, so that they might be on par with them. I don't see them beating UCLA. They go to the bye week, then they face off against Cal and Oregon State. 2 winnable games, but then again, I feel like, I'll say this, they're 50-50 games. I feel like both of those teams, Cal and Oregon, are on Colorado's level, so we'll have to see. They don't beat Oregon, they don't beat USC. We know this. Washington game could go either way, and they're not beating Utah, so yeah. Another interesting game for them will be Arizona. They actually lead this series 16-8, and the last time they played in Tucson, they were down 13-0 at the second half, but they would come back and score 24 unanswered points, so they can win there. They just, I don't know, for them, I mean, it's another 50-50 game. So there's a few 50-50 games for these guys. If they can get through that, they might have a decent record and might even get to a ball game. But it's hard because you don't know how those 50-50 games work, particularly with a team like this. You don't want to be negative and say they're going to lose all those games, but it's hard to say, well, which of these guys they could actually beat in that type of matchup. I know they could beat Air Force. Washington, I don't know. Cal, Oregon, maybe. You know how I go. And we got got Utah coming up next. We did mention them before. Kyle Whittingham. If he's the team to beat coming out of the South. Let's just be honest here. He's bringing back a whole bunch of different starters. We mentioned Cameron Rising. They blew out Oregon twice. What can you really say? I mean, does Arizona State have a shot? I mean, 8-5. They had a decent record last season, 6-3 in the Pac-12. Like I said before, I believe this team is waiting for their shoe to drop in terms of these sanctions from the NCAA. They lost 5 or 6 coaches and coordinators due to this drama. They only bringing back 7 starters. They're still under investigation. There's not a lot of positive to say right here. They have a 5 or a. They have a large battle at quarterback, looks like right now. We'll be having Finn Collins facing off against Dylan McLemore, Trenton Bourguet. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. We also got a couple transfers in the mix. Emory Jones from Florida. He made 12 starts in his career. We have Bear Bryant's grandson in the mix for quarterback. I don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback when they start the season. This was a team that, they came up short in their ball game as well, but they're pretty solid nonetheless under Herm Edwards, 25-18. But again, they're just a whole lot of drama. How good can you be? How consistent can you be despite all the drama? I just don't know. But this passing game, that was one of the main things that held this team back offensively. For Jayden Daniels, he started off hot, kind of, but he had 200-yard passing games in his first 5 of his first 6. So he would start off hot, but he would just average 129 yards per game over his last 5, and that was Jayden Daniels, and this is before he transferred off to LSU. So again, they lose their, quote unquote, best quarterback, and then they have this, like I said, this 3-way, 4-way battle. They're starting their best receiver, Ricky Pearsall, is gone. They lose 3 starters on the offensive line. They do bring in some transfers here. Chris Martinez, Des Holmes from Penn State. Whoever is back, they're going to average about 62 career starts for that, so that's okay. But if we look at this team defensively, they lose some all-conference talents on the defensive line. Defensive end Tyler John, he was first team, 12 starts last year, 4 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss. That's a lot of production. DJ Davison, defensive tackle, gone. He was third on the team in tackles, second team all Pac-12. Overall, defensively, they were pretty average, giving up about 20 points per game, so not too bad. They do bring back their top linebacker, Kyle Sowell. They do lose 7 of their top 9 tacklers though from last season. So I don't know what to say, but they do bring in some coaches with some NFL experience. Donnie Henderson is going to be their defensive coordinator. He spent 3 seasons in the NFL. They got a special teams coordinator, Sean Slocum, who worked 6 seasons in the NFL. We also got a new offensive coordinator, Glenn Thomas, who worked as an NFL QB's coach, and we also got Brian Billick, who is their AD. So again, they're trying to parlay that into some success and trying to stay on the straight and narrow. This might be the year, though, that it kind of falls apart, and who knows, everything might wrap up with them in terms of their investigation, so you might even add on some postseason shit to that. So imagine this team having a fall-off year. I can predict that kind of, and then just being hit with some sanctions at the end of it all. It would kind of suck, but, it happens. But they did start off the season with a win last night, though. I forgot. They did get a win versus Northern Arizona. So there you go. So let's take a look at the Pac-12 North. Again, not too hard here. Oregon, I think, definitely gets the best of everybody there. And is it close? Y'all think about it. But Oregon would go 10-4 last year, 72 versus the Pac-10. They would take some ugly losses to Utah. That kept them out of the conference championship. They did kind of get beat up. Well, let's just say they did get beat up by Oklahoma in their ball game, and not to mention the loss to Stanford in overtime. So there's some things that we have to rectify, believe it or not. And I think that your boy, Dan Lanning, he comes in there and he does that for us. Last season, he was the defensive coordinator down at Georgia. led them to one of the top finishes, led them to become one of the best defenses in the nation, giving up just 10 points per game en route to a national championship. As far as Oregon was concerned, they were 6th in total defense in the Pac-12 last season, 8 versus the pass. They were 9th in sacks for just 15, and that's despite having Kayvon Thibodeaux, who just went to the pros. So again, we have some things to improve here. We do bring in Josh Lupoy, a former defensive coordinator down at Alabama, defensive line coach in the NFL. So again, just like with Arizona State, we are looking to get some NFL knowledge and some NFL love here and to help these guys out. Now we bring back 7 starters on defense, including Noah Sewell, one of my favorite linebackers in the nation. 114 tackles from him, 4 sacks, 4.5 for loss. Justin Flo looks to be a big impact on the defense as well. They went ahead and utilized the transfer portal to bring in Sam Taimani from Washington. He would have 10 starts last season for 43 tackles, and he also got Christian Gonzalez from Colorado. Offensively, we bring back 8 starters, including Chris Hudson at the wideout spot, 419 yards last season, and the offensive line has a combined career 86 starts. So again, that's solid there. We'll be looking to anchor our running game on that, which should be solid, although we do lose Travis Dye. I'm a little bit worried about that, but Sean Dollars should help us out. Kenny Dillingham looks to bring in a new type of offense, pro style offense here with some read pass option type stuff, however you want to call it. So we look solid. We should be looking solid, in my opinion. I think we look good. We have a pretty decent schedule. Again, the big game tomorrow against Georgia, and of course later down the line we got to play against Utah. Moving on to Washington, again they have a new coach. There was a struggle for them last season in a lot of different ways. Kalen DeBoer comes in to help them out. He went 12-6 over 2 seasons at Fresno State. They also served as an offensive coordinator at Indiana as well. That's where he met up with his newest transfer, Michael Penix, who looks to be the starter for this squad right here. This squad will go 3-6 in the Pac-12 last year. Again, struggled. They would have the worst start you could ever imagine, losing to FCS Montana at home. Again, they would end up beating Cal, Arkansas State, Arizona, and Stanford. That will get them to their 4 wins. But again, Kyle DeBoer brings in a different element here at Fresno State. He had a top 20 defense and a top 30 defense. And a top 20, top 30, top 20 offense here. 26 in scoring, 33 points per game. He got them to the New Mexico Bowl where they won. They would finish 10-3 last season. They were 3rd in the Mountain West in passing as well. And overall, nationwide, they were 20th in points allowed, that being Fresno State with just about 20. So this all helps a Washington team that struggled offensively and defensively. So again, they bring in some transfers, particularly at the linebacker spot. DeMario King, JC transfer. They also bring in a transfer from Pitt and from UAB. These guys are pretty damn good. Cam Wright from Pitt would have 20 starts in his 4-season career, 186 total tackles. We also got UAB transfer Christopher Mall, 29 tackles, 234 tackles for him. And all together also has 13 sacks and about a 5-season career. So again, we have some experienced guys coming back we have some experienced guys coming in for the Huskies defensively. My question is, what do they have offensively? I'm not necessarily all buying into Michael Penix being much improved, but we'll have to wait and see pretty much. Behind them, we have Oregon State. What can we say? They had a surprise. They had a surprise season last year, winning about 7 games. They'll be looking to improve defensively. They're bringing back a lot of starters there. I think about 6 starters there. Their biggest thing is offense. They didn't really do well running the ball or scoring, but they do bring back Chance Nolan, so they have that going for them. So it is what it is. Like I mentioned before, in terms of their offense, they're bringing in some transfers at running back. Jameis Griffin from Georgia Tech. Their running backs that are returning include Deshaun Fenwick. He was their team's leading rusher, or their second leading rusher last season with 448 yards in the round. Trey Lowe is coming back. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry. In terms of their special teams, they're bringing back their punter and their kicker. Luke Locker at the punter spot would average 47 yards per punt. one. Everett Hayes will go 12 of 18 from his field goals, 2 of 4 from 50-plus yards. So again, they have some consistency going there. So I like to talk good about the teams with a lot of consistency. Oregon State seems to have some consistency here. They have a decent schedule here. They face off against Boise State, Fresno State, teams that are basically on their level. In a way, Oregon State leads that series against Boise State, and the home team is 6-2. So look for them to be favored in that game. Fresno State they go on the road to face Fresno State. That's a 50-50 game, but again, I feel like they could beat Fresno. Fresno is on their level. Montana State, that should be easy win. USC, that should be an important game though. The home team is 14-3 since 1998, and guess who's at home? Oregon State. So there you go. They're also coming off their first win in LA since 1960. So who knows what happens in that one. I don't think they beat Utah. They could come up big against Stanford. Washington State could be a close game. They're about on their level as well. Washington is coming off a bye. They host them November the 4th. They also host Cal November the 12th. Arizona State, they go on the road to face Arizona State, and then they wrap up the season, of course, with Oregon. And it's a way I think this is a chance for them to kind of repeat or even win 8 games. It could happen. I don't know what USC all has. Again, USC has to win to impress me. I don't know. Y'all, every year y'all always want to make USC the number 1 team, and they're not. So I don't know. Let's move on. We have Stanford here. Stanford has some questions after going 3-9 last season. Last year was their worst year defensively, getting up about 32 points per game, 450 yards a game, despite returning 8 starters. They also made a switch to a 4-3 defense, and it just did not help their defensive line at all. They gave about 236 yards a game on the ground, 5.7 yards per carry. They lost 3 starters this year, including their defensive end Thomas Booker and 2 of their backups on the defensive line. That's going to be their biggest cause for concern. Now, what can I say? A couple starters that they do bring back are going to be in the secondary. Kyu Blue Kelly, 2 interceptions for him last season, 11 pass deflections. Salim Turner Muhammad is going to be coming back as well. And they also bring in an Oklahoma transfer, Pat Fields, who has 36 career starts. And defensively, all eyes should be at linebacker, though. This is going to be their bread and butter. Levi Damuni, their top tackler, returns. He had 88 tackles last year, 2 sacks. We also got Ricky Maizan, their second top tackler, with 68. He comes back. He also had 6.5 tackles for loss. So look for them to definitely improve there. Offensively, I don't know what they're going to have at the running back spot. E.J. Smith looks to be the starter. He's dealt with a lot of injuries lately. He only had 133 rushing yards last season on 5.1 yards per carry. Casey Filkins looks to be in the mix as well. But the offensive line will definitely carry that squad, whoever it's going to be. They're going to have 104 combined career starts to back them up there in the offensive line, so that should be good. The wide receivers should be productive as well because they're going to now be healthy. They're going to be led by tight end Benjamin Urasek, who last year had 3 touchdown receptions and 658 receiving yards. Elijah Higgins looks to elevate his game as well. He had over 500 receiving yards last year on 11 yards per catch. He would also have 4 touchdowns. Moving on, we got Cal and Washington State. Let's give you the skinny on Cal. Not too much to miss here. I mean, this is going to probably be a stereotypical Cal year, in my opinion. Great defense. I think they bring back multiple starters on each level, at least 2 D linemen. I think they bring back at least 2 linebackers and at least 2 or 3 defensive backs. Again, Justin Wilcox usually has these guys playing at a higher level defensively, so look for them to be solid there. But the question for me is offense. They lose their quarterback last year, Chase Garbers, although I wasn't necessarily high on him anyways. They also lose a lot of receivers as well. So look for them to take some bruises offensively this season. Defense will always be a calling card. I don't know if this turns the needle for the program, and in my personal opinion, I think for Cal to go to the next level, they might have to look into letting go of Justin Wilcox, because you can only have so much good defense for so long without having an offense to complement that. He hasn't been able to bring an offensive play caller in there to help out. He hasn't been able to become an offensive play caller to do anything. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. The good thing is that they're bringing their kicker back, their top kicker back, and their top punt returner, kick returner, punt returner, Nico Remeggio. Those are a couple of good things to say here. Like I mentioned before, Kawoni Dang is coming back for the defense, so they have great linebackers as they usually do. He was a good linebacker being Wilcox, so again, that position is always going to be great. It's just everything else besides that. All right, y'all, we're going to look at Washington State. We're going to wrap this up. The Cougars, they had a 7-6 season last year, 6-3 versus the Pac-10, Pac-12, excuse me, second in the Pac-12 North. They started off the season 1-4 before winning 3 straight against Cal, Oregon State, and Stanford. They would lose a close one at home to BYU, but they would win 3 of the last 5 and capped off the season with a win over the Huskies, but they would come up short to Central Michigan in the Sun Bowl. Now, the Cougars, they start the season off with a new offensive coordinator, Eric Morris, who was a former head coach at Incarnate Word, and he also brings in a new offense. Well, he brings in his own form of the air raid. It was going to be just a passing attack. We have some RPO packages here as well. He's also bringing his quarterback from his former school, Cameron Ward. Last year, he would throw for over 4,000 yards, completing 65% of his passes, 47-10 touchdown to interception ratio. They're looking for that to be an upgrade. I say yeah, but also you have to remember he was at a different level, so it might level itself out. I don't know how much great he's going to be, given that he's going to be in a much higher level. So we'll have to see. He was a second team All FCS All American. Like I said, he's going to be your projected starter. They lose their top rushers, Max Borghi, Deion McIntosh, but they bring back Nakia Watson. He's looking to be their starter. They lose their top 2 receivers from last season, Calvin Jackson and Terrell Harris, but they bring back Deshaun Stribley, Donovan Oley, and looks like Denard. I think that name is Denard Bell, their leading receiver from last year, or at least their leading receiver coming back from last year. 471 receiving yards from him, 5 touchdowns. They also bring in transfer from Oregon State, Zariah Benson, who's had 13 starts in his career. The biggest issue is going to be the offensive line that loses 3 starters, including first team All Pac-12 Abe Lewis. The current offensive line just has 31 combined career starts, so that's going to be an issue. Definitely. They struggled winning the ball last season, just averaging over 121 yards a game on 3.9 yards per carry as well. So it doesn't get much better. But again, this is air raid, so they might not need to run the ball. Now, Washington State's defense was actually pretty solid. 4th in points per game, just giving up about 24. That was their best mark since 2003. They do return some starters on the defensive line, 3 to be exact. Ron Stone and Brennan Jackson are included in that. Jackson was a first-team All-Pac-12 member. He would have 5 sacks last season. They lose their top tacklers at linebacker. It is what it is. The special teams could take a step up as well, because kicker Gene Janikowski comes back. No, he's not related to Sebastian Janikowski. I thought he was, but he's not. It is what it is. He comes back, as well as their punter Nick Harbour. Janikowski was a first-team All Pac-12 member as well. Hey, who knows? Like I said before, it could be the Pac-10. We don't know what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years. He was 14-17 from the field goal range, for his field goals, as long as it was 41. We have Harbour here averaging about 42 yards per punt. He also spent the last 6 months with a broken ankle, so he's going to be healthy. He's going to look to improve, and the kick returner, punt returner situation still remains a question. So we'll see what happens. Overall, this schedule here is a mix of hard and easy. They open up with Idaho. That should be a win. I don't think they beat Wisconsin. Colorado State should be a win, though. They don't beat Oregon. But Cal, they split the last 8 with Cal. The home team has won 5 of the last 6. They're hosting that game. That could go in their favor. They go on the road to face USC. I don't see them getting that one. But they have won 8 straight against Oregon State, so that could be a win. And they go into a bye week. They face off against Utah and Stanford. I don't see them beating Utah, but they could get a win against Stanford. So 50-50 game here. 50-50 game, another 50-50 game here against Arizona State as well as Washington. Last year they break a 7-game losing streak to that team. That was the longest streak against them since 1981. So, I think both teams are kind of on the same level. Should be a 50-50 game for the Cougars. The Cougars could see themselves get out of here with another 7-win season, or possibly an 8-win season, just depending on what happens with USC, if they're as good as they say they are, as advertised, or not. They could stun Utah for all we know. They could definitely, I know they could get wins against Stanford and Arizona State, Washington too. I don't see them beating Oregon though, but definitely Cal, Wisconsin, Colorado State. So they should have a winning record. They should look all right. All right, y'all, I'm going to wrap this up for today. If you liked what you saw today, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Please be sure to leave some comments as well. Show me some love. Follow me on Spotify as well. I got a podcast that comes out on there as well. And please be sure to follow me on Instagram. I'll be leaving my link available for you guys. If anybody hasn't told you yet, I love you. Peace out. One love. And I'll holler at you guys later.